All right. Like I said a little earlier, welcome to the first of a series of SLC survival webinars that Colorado FBLA puts on so that you are more than prepared for the State Leadership Conference. First of all, I want to welcome you here, and we are so excited to have an in-person conference this year. So we're ready to get going. This webinar is about running for state office. We want to give you all the ins and outs, and we want to have you have the opportunity to ask all of the questions. And so anything that you have, you can put in the chat. You can, ask out loud. We just want to make sure that you're prepared if you're planning to run for state. It's not something that we want to hide from anybody. We want you to be well prepared because we do want to find the best candidates out there. So we'll go ahead and get started. So if you have not introduced yourself to the State Officer Handbook, it is on Colorado FBLA's website. If you haven't been to our website, it is just coloradofbla.org. There are a couple of ways you can get there. You can go to the leadership tab and then to the state officer team. And there's a link in there to the handbook. You can also go to the events tab and go to the state leadership conference link. And then there's another link that says running for state office. It's also linked in Memo Mondays. There is a direct link to the State Officer Handbook that I will be putting in the chat. So kind of make sure you pay attention to that. That way you can have all those links and get those copied. I probably won't put links in until a little after because I am sharing my screen, and to kind of do multiple things, it'll look a little wonky. So I'll put it in towards the end. But I'll make sure that there's plenty of time for you guys to copy those links. But like I said, everything is available on our website. And if you have questions, you can contact any state officer, or myself, or Ms. Staley. The State Officer Handbook is a bit daunting. It is 42 pages, but it covers all of the things. And so anything that you had questions about or would want to know, they're in there. We made sure to cover everything clearly, or as clear as we thought we could. But as always, there's room for improvement, and there's the human element involved. And if you have questions, like I said, just reach out to any of us and we'll help you out. First of all, qualifications. In order to run to be a state officer, there's several things that have to happen. One, you need to have taken or be currently enrolled in a Colorado approved CTE business course. FBLA is a co-curricular organization, and so we are an extension of the classroom, and we want our leaders to be knowledgeable in business education as well as in the CTSO or the FBLA organization. And so we think it goes hand in hand, which is why we want you to be fully representative of business education as well. Obviously, you need your local advisor approval. You want to be in good standing in your local FBLA chapter because as a state officer, you are a leader of the organization, but you are a member first. And so you want to be approved by your local advisor, have a 2.5 minimum GPA, have completed 1 year of high school, and have 1 full year remaining. And so we get a lot of questions on this one. Can freshmen apply? No, not yet. We want freshmen to be able to have the full experience of FBLA of a full year. And I know people think that state is the full year, but in all honesty, National Leadership Conference, which happens end of June, beginning of July, that is the end of the full year. And so to have those full year of experiences under your belt just prepares you a little more to lead an organization. And so we really recommend, if freshmen are interested to run to be a district officer, because there's that middle level of leadership. And then you can get a little more experience and then come back your sophomore year and run. And then obviously have 1 full year remaining Seniors can't run because they'll be going off to college. Have held a selected or elected office in their local chapter or other organizations. Obviously, we really recommend it being in your local chapter, because then you see things a little differently, because it is FBLA related on what you are leading. But sometimes we have really big chapters that, have great officer teams, but there are other people who, are just as great. And so we want to see people who maybe haven't been a local officer yet, but have held other kind of officer positions and have some great leadership skills as well. And so that's why we add the other organization on there. Have completed at least one level of the BAAs. I know the BAAs have changed a little bit, and so that's kind of why we said one level. Some people are at different levels because of what they had completed in the old version of the BAAs. And so if you complete just the beginning one, or if you've completed all of them, or even if you completed all the old ones, we'll accept that. The benefit of the Business Achievement Awards is that you learn so much about FBLA and just kind of ins and outs of FBLA. And so again, as a leader of our state organization, we want you to be knowledgeable on FBLA, and I feel the Business Achievement Awards really help with that. And then be able to attend all mandatory state officer meetings, trainings, events in their entirety. Again, being in a state leadership position, you are wanting, or you will be leading this organization, of 3,000 plus members. And so state officer for Colorado FBLA will need to be a priority. It's not something that you can, come to this meeting, but not that meeting, or maybe show up for this, but not that. If you have other obligations that maybe are more important to you or equally important to you, maybe a state office position isn't for you, maybe more of a district officer position would be for you. But this position would need to be your priority for that. A big reason for that is that we don't meet that many times, and we are trying to lead a state organization with very few meetings. And so when we meet, we need everybody there and we need everybody focused. And so it's hard to lead a state when you have members missing or members here and there. So we want to make sure that everybody can be able to attend those. We do have our tentative list or dates out. They're on the application. I'll have them up here later as well. So you can start looking at your calendars and getting those in there. All right. So as a candidate, we have a bunch of deadlines and then a timeline for pre-conference. So starting obviously with the application, and then there's some other pre-conference activities. The reason we started doing pre-conference stuff is so that it frees our candidates up to do their live events or their testing events at state. Because again, you guys are members, and if you work so hard and qualified at your district leadership conference, we want you to be able to compete at state. And so we still want to look at all of our candidates and do the things that we've done in the past, but we've started looking a little more at pre-conference. So hopefully you've seen that the one of the things that you need to do for running for a state office is write an article. So a professionally written article relating to either FBLA leadership or business education, and submit that to Colorado FBLA today. Again, I'll put the link in the chat later, but it's also on the website. Again, this will show some of your writing skills. As state officers, you guys do a lot of articles for our newsletters. And so we just want to see where you're at with that. We did extend our spring newsletter deadline to March 11th so that it matched up with the application deadline. Application deadline, also March 11th, and other application documents, 2-minute video, that type of stuff. I'll talk a little later about what is all included in the application. And again, if there's questions, just let me know, but that is also due March 11th. Then on March 12th, I will release pre-conference simulation activity. So as a state officer, again, we are in all the different areas in Colorado. And so a lot of times we have to work together across the gamut of Colorado. So we want to make sure that you guys can handle tasks without having the whole state officer team there. You know, and sometimes we have to submit things here and there. So I'll release that simulation activity, and it's just something you'll do on your own, and then get it turned in. It will be due April 1st. So I think that's like a 3-week, I think, deadline for you to do something kind of on your own. Then between March 14th and April 4th, you'll have the opportunity to set up a virtual interview with me. And then your advisor will also need to set up a virtual interview with me. And so when I send out all the pre-conference information, it has a link to all of my kind of interview times. So you can select what time works best for you, and then it automatically sends you a Zoom link. Super handy. But it's easy to set up. Here we're just wanting to get in depth with some of your ideas, some of your kind of ambitions and things like that, as well as we want to hear from your advisor, things that you've done for your chapter, things that you've done around your school. Just gives us a better understanding of who you are as a whole person. Then also between March 14th and April 4th, we will be sending out links to your advisor, to your administrator, and to your parents or guardians. And it's just a feedback form. Again, it lets us know from different areas in your life, just what kind of candidate you are. You know, we hear a lot of good things on these, and so it's fun to hear from different perspectives. Then we start looking at state. So at state, we have our first day, April 18th. You will be put into groups. All the candidates will be put into groups, and you will do some group work. And then at the end of the group work, I think it's like a 2-hour schedule, you will come and present to the selection committee. You know, obviously they will be kind of ranking you on I can't say it without giving you the topic, the presentation that you guys put together. So the content of it, as well as your presentation skills. And then that's really it for the first day. So it takes a long time, but you get to talk and network with some of the other candidates. Then on the second day, you'll have individual interviews with the selection committee. And so it's not like you'll be sequestered or anything like that. You'll have an interview time, and you just have to show up to the room at that interview time. You'll hang out outside, you know, in case the selection committee is still talking. But once it's time for your group to go in, you'll go in and you'll do interviews with the selection committee. The interviews with the selection committee are a little different. It's not like one interview with 11 people, because that would be kind of intimidating. What we do is we put the groups into, well, we put the selection committee into 4 groups. So they're in the 4 corners of the room. And then you'll have a 5-minute interview with each group. So it'll be a total interview of 20 minutes, but it'll be 5-minute little interview groups. And each group kind of has a different topic or different theme that they'll be kind of focusing on. So you'll get to share your experiences with everybody kind of more personally than talking with a group of 11 people. There will also be a time that you will have a scheduled state officer knowledge test. So you will come to the room, take the test, and then that's it. The nice thing about the first 2 days of state that we've really kind of opened up with our pre-conference activities is that you have a little more time. So again, you'll be able to compete in your events. You'll be able to, you know, work or be around your chapter and different things like that. So you're not going to be sequestered the whole time, just being in this selection committee process. So it's really nice. The third day is the final day of state leadership conference. And so in the morning, we'll have a little practice session with the production company. And it will be all the candidates that will do the practice session because you won't know who got what yet. And so it's before anything happens. Again, we'll get you the exact times and things when it gets a little closer, but everybody will kind of practice so that you know how induction happens. And then the installation or the induction will happen at opening session. And so that's when you would find out if you were selected for a state office. So kind of in a nutshell, that goes over a little bit of everything. So I promised you the dates. We have several dates that are on here. Some are a little tentative because depending on committees and things like that, you guys can set some of your own dates. So May 5th is our first state officer meeting in Denver. June 1st through 3rd is FBLA state officer training in Denver. And then this one is tentative because they were looking at some scheduling stuff. June 13th through 15th is the CTSO state officer training. And so this includes the other CTSOs, so HOSA, TSA, FCCLA, FFA, skills. All the other Colorado state officer teams are in this one, which is why that date's still kind of tentative. And then over the rest of the summer, you know, you'll have a lot of kind of tasks that you do, but then we don't meet again as a full group until September 7th. And that's a state officer meeting in Denver. There is the CTSO local officer training. Again, that date isn't set in stone yet. I think it's a 2-day thing, but we don't have the exact dates yet. It's usually right around the September meeting. So if you kind of look at your calendar there, that will help you out. In October are the FBLA Fall Leadership Conference. Again, various locations. You know, so this one is dependent upon securing all of our locations that we did last year, or if we're going to add some. As soon as all of these dates get put into stone, the ones that are kind of tentative, we make sure to share them with everybody. So those, they're not going to sneak up on you. December 8th is the next state officer meeting in Denver. Then obviously in January and February, all the district leadership conferences are happening. And so you're not required to go to any other conferences other than the one that is in your district that your chapter is actually in. So that shouldn't be anything too different. If there's a state officer and board member that would like you to come present a workshop at a different one, they'll reach out to you about that. So mainly just focus on your district. March 7th is the March FBLA state officer meeting in Denver. And then April 3rd through the 7th is the FBLA State Leadership Conference. Obviously, that's more days than what the leadership conference is, but officers normally go up early so that they can get everything organized, so that we do a lot of practicing, different things like that. Throughout the year, there are committee meetings. Our program of work is separated into 3 different committees. We have service, education, and progress. And so as a state officer, you will serve on one of those committees. Obviously, we have VPs. So we have our VP of service, VP of education, and VP of progress who lead those committees. And so throughout the year, those VPs will schedule some online meetings so that you can do some of the things that are in the program of work. And then August through April, we have monthly membership meetings, and those are also online. They tend to be a Monday, but again, we'll start looking at dates over the summer to start scheduling those out, kind of based on what looks good in the calendars. There are some other optional events, but they're not required. Institute for Leaders, National Leadership Conference, National Fall Leadership Conference, middle level state, whether you're attending other CTSOs, other CTE events. Those are some other optional events, but we kind of play those by ear. If people need FBLA state officers there, we find whoever can attend, if anybody can attend, and we look at it that way. Our expectations for state officers, again, these are all found in our handbook and are pretty similar to any kind of officer, but one is to attend all state officer meetings and trainings in their entirety, whether they are in person or virtual. The virtual one, we do want you to focus on having reliable internet service. You know, it's really hard to hear from an officer when they are, you know, heading in and out and in and out. So being able to find reliable internet service is huge. You know, if you need to attend something, you know, at school because they have better internet, you know, that might be an option that you'll need to talk to your local advisor about. If you have a neighbor that has great Wi-Fi, you might need to talk to them. But it's hard to listen to state officers when we can't hear them. Assist with communication to Colorado members and advisors. Obviously, we have the state officers that represent the districts, and they communicate with the members and advisors a little more because they have a smaller group with the districts. But even the VPs or the exec officers will communicate with members and advisors through social media and different things like that. But sending out monthly emails just to let them know, you know, what the state officer team is doing, what Colorado FBLA is doing, you know, what's going on at the state level, just to keep them in the know. Completing paperwork, officer reports, and travel authorizations in a timely manner. Obviously, that doesn't kind of hit you guys yet, but once you're an officer, you'll understand what all that looks like. You know, we get great feedback from our officers in the officer reports. We can help them learn things through those. Travel authorizations obviously are there to help, you know, show that they're traveling for FBLA, help with reimbursements and different things like that. Work with the team in planning state activities. And then I have a bunch of acronyms because the world is full of acronyms. So National Leadership Conference, Local Officer Training, Colorado Fall Leadership Conference, District Leadership Conference, State Leadership Conference, monthly membership meetings. I'm pretty sure I didn't hit everything, but those are all events that we help plan with. Not that we plan the whole thing, we plan bits and pieces, but that's one of the duties. Complete tasks as assigned in the program of work. When we get into our first meetings and the VPs get into their committee groups, they start creating their program of work right away in May. And then we check them off throughout the year. Every time we meet with the execs, because we meet with the execs separately online once a month. Every time we meet with the execs, we get okay, how's everything going in the program of work, and what do we need to look for this next month, and different things like that, just so that we know we're hitting our goals and our objectives. Complete additional tasks assigned by state advisor and state officer team advisor. You know, there's weird things that come up throughout the year that, you know, maybe we need someone to create a social media post on, you know, an alumni member that just wanted to share out something, or, you know, maybe somebody needs to, you know, create a newsletter really quickly or a handout for somebody really quickly. You know, we kind of assign those here and there. Those don't happen very often, but every once in a while things come up, and we try to find some of our officers that can get to stuff quickly if we need them to. Public relations and networking. Obviously, we talked about communication with Colorado members and advisors, but you also communicate with so many more people. You know, posting things in newsletters, getting things in newspapers, posting on social media, you know, talking to state representatives, networking with other CTSOs, networking with people at the national level. There's a lot of networking that goes on. And then, like I said a little earlier, setting FBLA as a priority to other activities. You know, we want well-rounded individuals, but we also need state leaders that can, you know, keep their eye on FBLA. I know it seems daunting, but I also coach volleyball and basketball. And so it can be done. We've had several officers who play sports, who are in other activities. You know, you can manage things as long as you set your calendar, as long as you set due dates for yourself and different things like that. You can be involved in other things, not just FBLA, but we do want FBLA to be your priority. And then, you know, you do this anyway, meet with your local advisor for guidance and advice, whether it's on your individual events and different things like that, or your local chapter things, if you're working on the Peak Awards or something like that. But we also want you to meet with them periodically and let them know what's going on at the state level and what you're doing, what your duties are. Having those check-ins with your local advisors, just keeps them in the know, and they can give you advice or guidance on anything that you're working with or doing. You know, it makes the process really smooth. In part of the monthly officer reports, there's actually a section that your local advisor will fill out on how it's going at the local level. All right. Oh, I got some up and some not up, so I'm just going to put them all up for you. The application, again, it seems like a lot because there's a lot of bullets on the screen right now. But there's just bits and pieces. And when the selection committee starts looking at these, they get to see a really well-rounded individual. You know, the selection process kind of grades different places. And I'll show you kind of where some percentages are later. But it seems daunting, but it's not. So personal information obviously goes in the application. Your social media handles go in there. We want to check up, you know, how you're doing on social media, that type of thing. A one-page resume. This does not need to have your personal information on there. It's just your resume information. So like at the top, when you normally put your name and address and all of that stuff, you know, we don't need your address and your phone number and, you know, your email and things like that, because we already have that in the application. So your resume can just include your activities, your you know, events and different things that you're in. Obviously we want to know all the stuff you've been doing in FBLA, since this is an FBLA position. So make sure and highlight that. But it is one page, you know, so keep it to one page. If you have 2 pages, you know, we just send one onto the selection committee. So a headshot picture, this helps the selection committee kind of start to see who you are during the pre-conference stuff. They can get a picture of your face and start thinking of who you are and things like that. So it doesn't have to be anything that you go pay lots of money to get done. It can just be a nice picture. Obviously a selfie is probably not the best picture of you, but a school picture is fine. If you want to put on a business suit and take a picture, that's fine. Your advisor can snap it. You know, it can be taken from a cell phone, just not a selfie. Office is held, business class is taken. Again, we talked about how it is a co-curricular organization. And so we want to see what you have been doing in business education. And then office is held, what leadership positions you've already held up until now. And then all your advisor, parent, administrator information, that's how we get those feedback forms out to them. And we can contact them that way. Office preferences. This one is a little unique to our process because we do a 1, 2, 3, where, you know, what would be your absolute first choice for state office? What would be your second choice for state office? And what would be your third choice for state office? Not that that's going to be where you would be, because if you're best suited for a different place, you know, based off of what the selection committee chooses, you may be in any of those. And then one of the questions I always ask is, you know, if you are offered any position on the state officer team, would you accept it? So if it's something that's not even in your preferences, then you could have that option as well. So we just want to see kind of where your goals are, or where your thinking is. The article, already talked about that, submitted by the 11th. 2-minute video, and that's just a video that you'll put together You'll put it on YouTube. It can be unlisted, and we just need the link to that. I've had a lot of questions about what that 2-minute video is. And it can be anything, obviously, hopefully reflecting on FBLA. It could be, your favorite memories of FBLA. It can be why you think you would be a great leader in FBLA. It can be, what programs you really want to promote in FBLA. It could be forward thinking or it could be reflective. It's totally up to you. The things that the selection committee looks at on this is obviously the content and, your speaking skills or your presentation skills on video. So we have a lot of people out there who love to edit videos. That's great if you want to add pictures and transitions and things like that. But part of the video does need to be you in front of a camera speaking, because the selection committee will look at that. And then there's all the paperwork that goes into things. So the candidate agreement, that needs to be signed. We do need actual signatures. So like a typed signature is not okay. Make sure we get them signed. And even if you print it, sign it, and take a picture of it to submit it, that's fine. If you don't have a scanner or anything like that, that's okay. If you actually use your mouse to sign it, that's okay as well. It's a little sloppy because I'm not very good at that, but is also okay because it's a signature. The same thing with the policies, procedures, and code of conduct page, the sanctions form, the photo release, those will all be signed and just uploaded. We do want a copy of your transcripts. They don't have to be official ones, so they can be unofficial transcripts. So for like my school, we use Infinite Campus. The kids can get on there and print out a copy of their transcripts. And then a letter of recommendation from your local advisor. So that is all the stuff that goes into the application. Again, it seems like a lot, which it is because there's a lot of bullets there again. But if you just kind of take it piece by piece, it doesn't seem as much. Print out a checklist and then just start checking things off as you get them done. And then you'll put it all together all at once. All right, so the pre-conference tasks, just to talk about that a little bit more, it is a simulated state officer project. So again, I've talked about how, officers are all over Colorado and sometimes we need to work on workshops or, bulletin designing or newsletter designing, off on our own. And so that's kind of what it could be, may not be that. It's always funny because throughout the year, I'm always like, that's going to be our officer project this year. It's something that we make the officers do this year, but throughout the year, but I change it for a selection committee. So that'll be assigned March 12th. The candidate virtual interview with me, again, you'll be able to schedule that at your time. And the calendar that I have is very, very, very flexible. I work, I have times that are selected throughout the day. If you have openings throughout the day, I have some that are right after school. I have some that are later into the evening. If you are in athletics or clubs or if you have a job, I do some of them on the weekends. So I have a bunch of times. You just have to schedule it early and we're good to go. And then the same thing with your advisor. There are tons of time throughout that 3-week period that they can just sign up for one and it'll be good. The interview, I think on my schedule, I think the interviews say 30 minutes because they're 30-minute Zoom calls, I think. But the interview doesn't last 30 minutes. It's usually about 15 minutes, 20 minutes maybe. And so that's kind of what you can expect on those. And then throughout the pre-conference time, you are going to want to review the officer handbook, the Colorado FBLA website, and the FBLA website for the state officer knowledge test. And that test will take place at state. A lot of people confuse this with like the intro to FBLA test or, the knowledge test that used to be on the BAAs. It's not. I mean, there are some great questions on those, and we may have some questions like that are strictly related to FBLA, but some of the questions are related to some of the duties of our officers, or, you know, who's in leadership at the state level in Colorado, or, you know, different things like that. So it will get into maybe some of that type stuff, but it's kind of all over the place. And it is a 50 question test. Do not fear this test. It is not like a make or break. Like if you fail this test that you can't be an officer. It serves two purposes. Obviously, it shows us, you know, how prepared you are, but it shows us some of the things that we need to cover in training with our officers. So when we meet in June, you know, what kinds of things do we really need to go over and hit a little harder than some of the other things that we can maybe not focus as much on. And then we do offer some state officer candidate networking opportunities. Obviously, the monthly membership meeting is a great opportunity to talk with the current state officers. And in the past couple of years when we've been virtual, we've had some additional networking times. And so that's going to be up to the state officer team if they want to host some networking times. Those networking opportunities don't have anything to do with the adults in the room. And so it's kind of a free space for you to talk with those state officers. And so when those come up, I will let you know who to contact for those. All right, so selection committee process, just so you know what's going on behind the scenes. There's part of the things that are reviewed by the selection committee and part of the things that are reviewed by Colorado FBLA. So obviously application, the selection committee is going to see, and when I say selection committee, there are 11 individuals, one representing each district that are high school members that will be on the selection committee. So right now we are in the process of putting our selection committee together. Again, one representative from each district, and it can't be somebody from a school who has a candidate running for state, so that there's no biases there. And so that's the committee. When you think of things that are going to the selection committee, think of that as your target audience. Obviously, you know, things need to be professional because you're representing Colorado FBLA, and a lot of things get out to adults as well. But you don't, and this kind of comes back from a question I had last year, you know, in an interview with a selection committee, you don't have to, you know, rattle off all these acronyms that some of our FBLA members don't know. So speak to them at their level, kind of thing. Okay, back to the application. All right, we already talked about your resume, the article, the YouTube video. Those are all the things that they look at from the application. Then from the pre-conference activities, they will look at your simulated officer task, and then they will, this is not pre-conference anymore, they'll grade your group task and presentation at state, and then they'll have your interview at state as well. And so when I say grade, very similar to our event rubrics, they have rubrics that go over each of those different things that they rate you on. Then reviewed by the Colorado FBLA staff, the phone interview and from you and from your advisor, the parent feedback forms, and then we obviously grade the knowledge test as well. And so it's just kind of different things. The majority of your selection process, or your grade, I guess, for lack of a better word, is from the selection committee. Okay, so the stuff reviewed by the Colorado FBLA staff is mostly for knowledge for us on how to help you as a state officer if you were to get the position, and not necessarily we're going to ding you because your mom said bad things about you in the parent feedback form. And then a social media check. Dang, forgot that one. Yes, we want you to act accordingly on social media because you would be a representative of Colorado FBLA. Local advisor expectations are similar but different. Mainly, they have to attend all the state officer meetings. And so the May, September, December, and March meetings, which are in Denver, they need to go with you to those meetings. they're not always in the meeting with you. A lot of times we have separate duties for them to work on. But the local advisor becomes another extension of Colorado FBLA, just not as visible, I guess, maybe. Help organize transportation for other state officer events. You know, state officers travel a lot, whether it's the meetings or Colorado Fall Leadership Conferences or whatever. And if a parent can't or is unable to take a state officer, we want to make sure that they're able to come to the events. And so, you know, hopefully the local advisor can help with that transportation. Talked about this a little earlier, meet periodically with your state officer to provide advice and guidance on their roles and responsibilities, and just to check in and see how things are going. Review state officer materials for feedback. You know, I feel like there are some local officers that do this a little more at the beginning of the term, and then not as much as it goes out. And that's a great thing, because that just says the state officer has grown as a leader and has learned from all the support and advice given at the beginning. And really that's what a local advisor's job is to help these kids grow into great leaders. And so you might review a lot at the beginning, but then as it goes along, you might just kind of give it a check or a thumbs up or a glance or whatever. But then it just helps, you know, with a level of professionalism. I still have people review my materials before I send them out. So whether it's an email or an article or whatever, it's always good to have a second set of eyes on things. And I did mention the reflection in the monthly officer report. Your local advisor will give a little blurb. It's a paragraph. It's nothing too intense, but it just kind of shows that you understand what your officer has done throughout the month. And then assist with some of our state events, whether it's Colorado Fall Leadership Conference, State Leadership Conference, or District Leadership Conference. Help with those. Your time commitment as an advisor, or the time commitment as an advisor, does depend on the position of the state officer. So just to give you an example, if the student gets the state officer that represents the district, that officer actually helps host the district leadership conference. So the local officer will work with the board member and the state officer to put on this conference. They work as a trio to put this on. You know, we obviously have adults there to help out with a lot of the logistics money side of it. But it is a great opportunity for our high school kids to help and learn about hosting events and running events and scheduling and different things like that. So that might be a little more intensive around districts, whereas if your kid is the VP of, you know, progress, you know, maybe you don't help host districts, or you can help host districts if your district wants you to, but you won't help host districts, but you know, you'll be helping check the social media stuff or whatever, help them with their program of work, you know, setting that up, organizing that. So it just kind of depends on what your kid gets. All right, that was a lot. That was a lot in a little time. But before I go over some like questions that I always get, or before I, you know, release questions to you guys, you know, I just want to say good luck. Obviously, keep calm. It's a lot, but hard work is always very, very, very rewarding, especially in this position. You know, there are so many opportunities for learning, growing, moving into who you become as a leader, as an adult. And so all of those opportunities are very, very, very rewarding. The ability to network with others, especially since we are back in person, is just amazing. Learning from people across the state, learning from people at the national level, it gets you out of your little world, and it gives you a whole new perspective on, you know, maybe yourself or maybe what you want to do in the future. You know, very, very valuable lessons. So in my mind, the rewards outweigh the workload. With anything you do in life, there's a lot of work to it, but the rewards are so much better. You know, I can relate it to, you know, my basketball team or my volleyball team. You put in so many hours in practice for, you know, like a game here and there. but it's just rewarding. It's the process that you go through because you get better, you get stronger, you build those relationships on the court and different things like that. And then you find success when you have the games and different things like that. There'll be ups and downs like anything in life, but you learn, you grow. It's a great experience. So some frequently asked questions that I've had in the past, I went ahead and just typed them all up here because it makes it easier. I did explain the first one. What do you cover in the 2-minute video? Again, you're promoting FBLA. So talk about something you're passionate about. Could be your personal story. It could promote national things. It can promote Colorado things. It can be something you're passionate about, hoping that Colorado FBLA will do. It can be an impact that you've had from FBLA or that you've seen from FBLA. It can be something, totally different than those things, but something that has an FBLA perspective that you would think the selection committee would really want to learn. When you submit these 2-minute videos, we do also put them on our social media because we want to show off our candidates to all of Colorado FBLA. So kind of keep that in mind, that other people will see it, not just the selection committee, but your choice. Any tips for applying? Organization and time management is the biggest one. And I think if you would ask any current state officer or any past state officer, they will totally agree with that. Just like the process of being a state officer, you have to be organized, you have to manage your time. Or you learn to be organized, or you learn to manage your time. And so to kind of give you a little brush into what being a state officer is, the selection process is exactly like that. And so throughout the term of a state officer, there's projects, documents, presentations that you'll need to do on your own time. But we also want you to be, a high school kid. We want you to go to the football game on a Friday night. We want you to participate in other CTSOs. We want you to do those things, but you got to learn how to plan them. You got to learn to make sure that you still get your tasks done on time. So I think that would be the biggest tip or advice that I have for applying. Besides district leadership conference, what do the state officers for the districts do? They also help with state level activities, obviously planning conferences, organizing workshops, speaking at events, creating social media posts, helping with the different sections of the program of work. I talked earlier about how we have 3 sections of our program of work: service, education, and progress. The state officers that represent the districts are on those committees. So they're led by the VPs, but they're on those committees to help out with them. So their input goes to the state level too. It's not just a district leadership conference that they put on. What interview questions will be asked? There's a list of example questions in the state officer handbook, but questions vary. It's fun throughout the year. Every once in a while, something will come up with a state officer or something out of school, and I'll just add it to my list of questions. So whether it's a question that I asked in my interview, or if it's a question that the selection committee asks, it could be, something a little random. So just prepare for everything. Obviously understand FBLA and understand what your passions are and things like that. Understand, what your leadership skills are and things like that. But be ready for anything. How are the different parts of the selection process weighted? So this is where the percentages kind of come in. So the application materials and pre-conference activities, those will be 15% of your final score. The group presentation at state is 35% of your final score. The interviews are 35% of your final score. So you can see that the actual live things are a bit higher. I mean, everything else has some stake in it too, but the live things are a bit higher. The knowledge test is 10%. So remember I said it's not going to make or break you. If you fail a knowledge test, it shows us, what we need to cover throughout the year. But it is a percent. And then the miscellaneous 5% is, just feedback that we get from outside people, the social media check, organization, stuff like that. So very little kind of other stuff. So yeah, Again, the live stuff has the most teeth to it. And then can a candidate still compete in their events they qualified for from districts? Yes. Used to be no, but we have moved to more pre-conference stuff so that you can compete in your events. We just need to know that ahead of time. So, you know, after we have you apply and I send out the list of pre-conference stuff, I also ask you, you know, is there an event that you qualified for? Because what I will do is at state, I will move you to the beginning of the schedule so that you present before selection, the selection process starts. All right, I think that is it for everything I have to tell you. And so I'm gonna leave this up here for a second before I kind of let it go and put a bunch of links and stuff in the chat. But if you have any questions, obviously the state advisor, Jen Staley, is very knowledgeable about things. If it is pertaining to running for state office, I would probably be the better one because I am the state officer advisor. And so I work directly with the state officers and run the selection process. Obviously, Jen knows a lot about it, but I probably can answer a little faster. And then you can contact any of the state officers. I do have their emails that I'll put into the chat as well. But they have also put up their little snap codes. So if you want to snap them, you know, through Snapchat, all of their codes are on the screen right now. I'll leave that up a little longer. All right. I have a question here. Is completing a CTE, I'm guessing, course and one level of BAAs absolutely mandatory, or are the exceptions to this rule? For instance, if you have not taken similar but not CTE certified courses, competed programs through your organizations like Junior Achievement, or earn several business awards like at Denver Startup Week, would this constitute as alternative demonstration? I mean, again, because FBLA is a co-curricular activity, we really want it to be part of the CTE approved courses. We do have, obviously high schools have full credit courses through colleges. And so that we've had some officers that do dual credit, but it's still part of their high school curriculum, which is approved by the CCCS, which is the Colorado Community College System. And so, yes. And one level of the BAAs, I don't want you to freak out about that. The BAAs aren't hard if you register and sign up for them. I think the first level I had one kid that maybe took 4 hours to complete the whole first level. And so that one's not as scary as it sounds. But then eventually, as we begin, we do want our officers to kind of really know those things. So yes, one level. We might talk about the class, or we might have a conversation with Jen about the class. But like I said, we do like to have that experience there. Must you hold or have held a position as an FBLA districts officer, or is serving as the president of your chapter sufficient? Serving as president of your chapter is sufficient. As that requirement, it's holding any type of elected or selected office. So obviously the presidents, you were elected to that position, and so that works. You know, you get to have some different knowledge as a district officer of FBLA, but it is not a requirement. And then what is the typical number of applicants versus state officer positions? There are, so technically there are 11 districts. And so we have a state officer for each of the districts. And then there are 3 VP positions, and then our president. So what is that, 15? So normally that's how many officers we have. In the past, we've had, I mean, prior to COVID like hit our numbers a little bit, but in the past we've had around 30 people apply, I would say. Um, some of the interesting positions get to be on geography because let's say, for instance, District 1 has, one candidate. They still have to be selected to that position, but they're the only person running from that district. And so it's not like someone, because District 1 is in northern Colorado. So it's not like somebody from Southern Colorado can be the District 1 state officer because it's more locally kind of managed. And so that's where the numbers issue kind of gets a little interesting. If you notice on the screen right now, we do not have a representative from District 7, District 8, and District 10. Those 3 districts didn't have anybody run last year. And so, there were people that ran for state office that didn't get a position, and it's because maybe their district had more applicants for the district positions. But then it also opens up positions that nobody runs for. The executive positions, which are the president, VP of progress, VP of education, and VP of service, those can be from anywhere. But the district state officers have to be from those districts. So scrolling down on my questions. How often would you say the state team meets besides the already scheduled meetings? Is there some team bonding opportunities? Yes. So team bonding obviously happens a lot in the summer. This last officer team didn't have that opportunity because we were still in the side effects of COVID. And so all of our summer stuff was virtual, which was a bummer because you get to do so many things when you are in person. So in the June trainings, the FBLA training and the state officer training, those are great opportunities because we do a lot of work throughout the day. But then we have our fair share of fun as well. And so those are when the team bonding really starts. In person, we meet, the 4 meetings specifically, Colorado Fall Leadership Conference, or, even the state events, state leadership conference. Those are other times that we're in person. We do have a little bit of time for some more team bonding stuff, but a lot of time we're working and getting things done. So those are a couple more times for team bonding as those are in person. Otherwise, it's more virtual for the monthly membership meetings and things like that. I have had state officer teams in the past that have met on their own, to bond a little more, whether they, schedule a time in July to go meet and I don't know, go on a hike or something. I don't know what they do. Those are opportunities for them, but those are not sponsored by Colorado FBLA. And so obviously y'all got to get your parents' permission to do that and get that okayed through that way and find your own transportation and pay for your own things and different things like that. But the ones provided by Colorado Opportunity are mostly the June ones. Are the applications due March 11th at 11:59 p.m.? Yes. I always like the people that make sure we know the time. Yes. I believe the computer is set at 11:59 p.m. And if it is not, I'll make sure that Jen sets it to that. Hopefully you're not up that late finishing up an application. Again, time management, organization are very important, but if you need to stretch it out because you got something going on at the beginning of March, then yes, you have till 11:59. For the social media check, are you looking at if we are active or just checking to ensure there's nothing unprofessional? Both. Obviously, one of our positions does deal with a lot of social media. And so we want to see who best fits that position, as well as we want to make sure that our officers are being active on their social media. We're not blind. We know that kids and students have multiple social media accounts, and that's, neither here or there for us. But the ones that are easily found or the ones that you will be using as a state officer. We want to make sure and see and look at and that kind of thing, as well as our kind of spreading our activities, spreading our events, spreading our news through social media is a big part of what we do. So when we post something on social media, we ask all of the state officers to share it on their personal social media, because, that kind of, viral transaction can help get Colorado FBLA kind of in people's brains, hopefully give us some more, memberships or promote the things that we do to other people. Because maybe they don't follow us on Colorado FBLA Instagram, but maybe they follow Portia, and Portia shared it and they're like, oh, what's that activity? So it's a good advertisement piece for us as well. So again, to answer that question, I rambled there. To answer that question, we're looking at both. Could you explain more about the presentations on April 18th? When would we receive the topic and how would we present it? So it is kind of like an impromptu thing. You would receive the topic when you get to the selection process. So I'm trying to think of what time it starts. Off the top of my head, I want to say 1:30, but that might be wrong. Maybe it's 2. The selection process starts at 2. You would show up to the room. Obviously, we do a little networking at the beginning. I would introduce some people to you. I would put you into your groups and give you the topic there. As a group, you would have 2 hours to work on that presentation, put it together. So you would need to bring some kind of electronic device, whichever you want to work on, very similar to any of our events. Just bring a laptop, that's fine. And then you would present it there. Whether or not we have a projector or you present from the laptop, I say last year, we haven't been in person for 2 years. I think the last time we were in person, we had a projector in the selection committee's room. And so we just hooked up to a projector for you to present so that the selection committee can see your presentation a little better. But then you work, in your group to present it all together. So it's kind of an impromptu thing, which sometimes happens as a state officer. I remember, I think 3 or 4 years ago, we were at the state middle level conference and, had somebody back out on something. And so the state officers had to come up with a plan B. So it's something that's relatable to what state officers have to do sometimes. This next question makes me sad. I'm traveling to Europe this summer and have no way of going to the June meetings. Should I just not apply then? And I hate to say, probably not. But like I said earlier, we need all of our officers at all of the things. And the June meetings especially are very important because those are the trainings. Those are when we create our program of work. And as hard as it is to say, yeah, don't apply, we really need you. And, a great experience for going to Europe. I would love to go to Europe, but we do need all of the officers at those June meetings, as with all the other meetings that we have. It's an interesting thing to run a state organization and have 15 individuals from all different parts of Colorado. And so the very few times that we are able to get together, we need to have all of them so that we can work on all of that. My suggestion for you though, is maybe the state position doesn't work out because of your summer travel. But we do have district officer positions, which is just another level of leadership in Colorado. And so you could help, run that district conference and still, give back to Colorado FBLA just at a different level. Is there any must-know expectations for the state officers besides the obvious expectation of time management and accountability? Like I said, the state officer handbook is, what was it, 42 pages or 43 pages? I don't remember, 40 some pages, and has a lot of what the state officer team does. You know, time management is huge, accountability is huge, you know, but we just want you to, you know, represent Colorado FBLA, you know, as a member first, but as a leader second. We want you to be able to grow throughout this process. We're not expecting perfection in May and June, right when you're elected or selected. You know, you'll grow throughout the process, and you know, there's going to be ups and there's going to be downs, but like I said earlier, it's so rewarding. It's a great experience. It's, you know, you'll get to meet people and do so many different things. But as for expectations, you know, things like, you know, working with your program of work committee, you know, helping to plan the monthly membership meetings, you know, submitting articles to the newsletters, creating social media posts, filling out monthly officer reports. I mean, there's just a lot of things that go on throughout the year. I don't know, I don't know, you know, if I can tell you all the things that state officers do, but obviously you can connect with some of the state officers, again, through Snap or through email, and they can help you out with that as well. Questions? On the, for Gabriel, for the lack of CTE course, my question for that would be, are you signed up for a CTE approved class for next year? That would be my first question. And then obviously I can talk with the state advisor and we can talk about that. So I wouldn't say don't apply, but you do want to be representative of business education. So my first question is, are you planning to take business courses next year? Because if that's a no, then maybe FBLA is not the organization that you should be a state leader in. Again, it's a great organization to be involved in, but we want to be representative of business education as well. So I'll put my email in the chat here in a second. If you have personal health issues, would the selection committee look at you or at that differently because of that? I don't think so. I think I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Hopefully y'all got the snap codes if you needed them. You know, just like anything else in life, you know, I'm sure people have biases and different things like that, but I hope that doesn't keep them from, you know, choosing people that are the best qualified or choosing people that are amazing. I feel like the rating system that's set up with all of the things that we do throughout the selection process is pretty unbiased. So they're rating your progress and different things like that, not necessarily rating you as a person. Personally, I guess, I don't know how to say that. All right. So let me, hold on. I'm thinking and trying to do something at the same time, which is not working very well. So I don't think that would hold them back. That's back to what I was saying. Let me get rid of my. All right, so I put a bunch of the links in there, a bunch of the emails. My email is in there. Not all the officers are in there because it didn't let me copy all of them. So hang tight. I'll do that one again. I stopped at AJ. All right, so all of their emails are in the chat right now, so you can get those. Obviously, all of those emails are also on our website. If you go into leadership and down to state officer team, you'll find their emails as well. So that can be super helpful as well. And so are there any other questions for me? that I can answer tonight. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stop recording at this moment.